Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 23 of season 1 of Ultimate Spider-Man called Not a Toy. And this is our guest starring Captain America episode. And man, it's really just as cool as you could possibly hope for from a guest spot by none other than Captain America. But we're going to get into all the fun stuff from this episode in just a minute. Before we do that, there is one thing I want to talk about first, and that is that the Trapster has broken out of Shield custody again. Seriously, he has to have done this like 4 or 5 times by now. I mean, I don't think River Song has escaped from prison this many times. I mean, really, it's just absolutely ridiculous. So, who the heck is in charge of keeping these guys locked up? I mean, it must be like Trapster's like secret brother or something. It's just like, oh, dude, you're caught again. Okay, just stay cool, and I'll let you slip out the back door, tonight. Just play cool for a few hours. I mean, seriously, there is no other reasonable explanation. This kind of explains why Shield has to constantly rely on, superheroes, but people are horribly incompetent if they're not named Nick Fury. And even he's dropped the ball more than a few times over the course of this show, as we've discussed. So anyway, let's get right into it. Of course, we get to start off with a rather interesting opening of seeing Cap taking down Spidey and the Amazing Friends. Nova, of course, is panicking and reenacting a scene from the movie Aliens. Yeah, was it Aliens? Yeah, I'm sure it was Aliens. For some reason, I was thinking it might have been Starship Troopers for a minute, but no, it was actually from a good movie that didn't have Neil Patrick Harris in it. But come on, come on, him. He was basically one of the only real highlights of Starship Troopers. Yeah, we're just gonna leave that at that. But anyway, so with that said, I did get a big kick out of seeing the other members of seeing the Amazing Friends really geeking out over Captain America, and I do like that one of the people doing it hardest was White Tiger. She's established to be a major Shield fangirl, but Captain America, there's Shield, and then there's Captain America. So it really was just great seeing everybody really, for once, being on the geek train along with Peter. And speaking of that scene, I do have to say I did enjoy that bit where Iron Fist basically says, and what if I am freaking out? I do like that this version of Danny, while he still has that core of calm and collectiveness that is very essential to Iron Fist's character, it's not quite as strong as we're used to seeing in the comics. And of course that makes sense. I mean, Danny here in the show is what, 15, 16 years old? Of course it's perfectly reasonable that he wouldn't be quite as disciplined as he would, a version of Danny who's late 20s, early 30s most likely in the comics. Of course, one thing I do miss about the version of Iron Fist from the comics is actually that he has a much better sense of humor than TV Danny. Their Iron Fist is, a fairly cheerful guy. At least that's always been my estimation of him. Here he's much more of a serious person. And I won't lie, out of all the Amazing Friends, the one who I don't care for the most is Nova, because mostly he's just been constantly written as a dumbass. But this time around, he was genuinely played not stupid, or not really any worse than anybody else, at least, which in Nova's case is actually an improvement. And I did find it absolutely hilarious that he's just going to hang back and watch and record on his phone Captain America beating up his buddies. So yeah, you could totally tell he was wanting to YouTube that later. But anyway, I do have to give the animation team some serious credit. Now, I've mentioned before in my reviews that sometimes the animation team just really brings it to the next level during some of the action sequences. And this is another one of those examples. The fight between the team and Captain America was beautifully animated. They did a lot of stuff with angles. There was a lot of really cool stuff going on with motion. And it was just a really fun, exciting fight. It didn't really have much in the way of storytelling consequences, but that's okay. Sometimes it's fun to just go out there and indulge in showing the audience something cool. And that's what we got with this fight between the team and Captain America, and that's fine. Because, let's face it, overall, the genuine story of this episode is ultimately not terribly complicated, which naturally is not automatically a strike against it. And it's all resolved extraordinarily quickly. And again, not necessarily a strike against a story, but, it's certainly a worse sin than having a very simple story. Not every story has to be some sort of Tom Clancy conspiracy thing that people take forever to figure out. Sometimes a story can be extremely straightforward, but still be extremely compelling. Look at something like Jurassic Park. The whole basic storyline is people trying to not get eaten by the dinosaurs. That's all there really is. Ultimately, just Jurassic Park is people trying not to get eaten by dinosaurs. Or something like Independence Day, where it's stop the aliens. But anyway, I think I've made my point there, so let's move on. Of course, we once again get to see the return of Agent Coleson. This is really, I think, possibly one of the longest instances of screen time that he's gotten, probably this entire series. Or if not, it's certainly way up there. And I'm a little bothered by the way they're really just amping up his Captain America fanboyism. I think Flanderization, in reference to Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, is sort of the way the good folks at TV Tropes put it, the way he was initially presented as just sort of a very religious but ultimately and nice guy, and then he just became ridiculously religious and ridiculously nice over the course of the series. But anyway, so here Coulson's Captain America fanboyism is played to a pretty ridiculous level, really. I mean, seriously, I'm slightly amazed that his pants didn't fall down. We saw and didn't see that he had little Captain America boxer shorts on or something. But then again, one of the things that's going on with Ultimate Spider-Man is that it's a very strongly humorous show. It does that. It really plays up the more humorous aspects of many of the characters that we see more often than not. We've seen it with Thor. We've seen it with, of course, Spider-Man. We've seen it with Loki and Iron Man and all the other stuff. It's just what the show does. And it's certainly never intended to be as serious as, say, the movie universe or even the comics. So while I suppose it might bother me a little bit, whenever I feel like that, I just need to remind myself that, this is designed basically for 10-year-old kids, for elementary school kids. And if I think back to how I was when I was that age, and if you'd presented this show to me back then, I think it was absolutely awesome. I think this is one of the best superhero shows I'd ever seen. And at the end of the day, Ultimate Spider-Man is a very, very good superhero show. It might not be, the sort of more serious and dramatic kind of superhero show that somebody like me at my age would prefer. If I think of what I would want out of a superhero show, I wanted to go back to something like Batman the Animated Series from the early 90s, which really just set the new benchmark for mature storytelling in superhero shows. But it's okay for every superhero show out there to not be that. It's okay to do something that's a little irreverent, a little funny, because at the end of the day, this is ultimately, as I have said before, aimed at kids. This is to get the next generation of Spider-Man fans in the comic shops buying the comics, in the movie theaters watching the movies, and in the stores buying the action figures. And you can complain about that, the commercial aspect of it, But, at the end of the day, Marvel Comics is a business, and if nobody's buying Spider-Man stuff, we don't get any more Spider-Man. So, with that incredibly and possibly totally unnecessary tangent finished, let's move on. So, let's talk about some more of the funny stuff. I got a humongous kick out of Spider-Man doing the Avengers Assemble, Avengers Disassemble little fantasy sequence. That's made, in a way, darkly comical if you're familiar with the comic book storyline called Avengers Disassemble, where basically, and not to spoil too awful much, several Avengers die and somebody turns evil. I'll give you a hint. It's the Scarlet Witch, because that's what she does. No, seriously, the Scarlet Witch has turned evil more than once, and yeah, you don't want to know what she did to Wonder Man one time. Seriously, you don't. But anyway, let's continue on. Speaking of dream sequences, I got a humongous kick out of Dream Doctor Doom calling Spider-Man his boy. For some reason, Doctor Doom using ghetto speak is just, to me, absolutely hilarious. It really is. Again, just because it's such an enormous contrast to his character, but in the context of this show and what we're dealing with, it actually fits perfectly. And I do have to give whoever came up with that idea some credit. That is genuinely, that's probably going to end up one of my all-time favorite jokes in this season of the show. Although I will also give some serious points to the line about how Doctor Doom's cape smells like baloney. I don't know. I guess maybe they had like something with Vienna sausages for lunch or something. Who knows? Now, one other thing that I want to talk about is the relationship between Spider-Man and Captain America. And they don't really have, despite Spider-Man being an Avenger, the strongest relationship in the comics. But I always enjoy those stories with Spider-Man and Captain America because they really are just such an incredible contrast. But they're also both prime examples of some of the most dedicated superheroes in all of comics. Captain America basically was created because, some Jewish comic book artists said, you know what, Hitler sucks balls, let's create a superhero who feels the same way. And remember that Captain America 1, the famous comic book with Captain America on the cover punching Hitler in the face, that came out before America officially entered World War I. That was essentially these creators, launching a serious protest about what was going on. And given the nature of what it is that Captain America does, well, that's incredibly fitting. And Spider-Man, he's the superhero who, despite really all reason, out of all the stuff that's happened to him over the years, I think out of all the superheroes out there, he's the guy who I could really see the most of saying, like, you know what, screw this, I've had enough, and just hanging it up. Now, of course, he's done that more than once in the comics, but Spider-Man always comes back because at the end of the day, he can't let the fact that he has this great power overwhelm his sense of responsibility. And, I could go on a little bit more about this, but I think I've made my point. And, I think I need to limit myself to at least only one, try and limit it to just one huge lengthy tangent per video. As I said, we do get to see that interplay here. It's very nicely done. I did get a big kick out of seeing Spider-Man kind of like, you didn't scratch my bike, did you? And of course, seeing Captain America on a motorcycle is also kind of funny in itself because there have been times in the comics where riding around on a motorcycle kind of was one of Cap's shticks. And of course, there's also the infamous TV movie that was made, back in the years and years ago, where Captain America rode around on a motorcycle with a helmet with little wings on the side and fought a really crappy version of the Red Skull who for some reason was Italian. Believe me, folks, I've seen clips of it, and yeah, it's certainly in no way, shape, or form Captain America: The First Avenger. And yeah, just be glad that you and I now live in a world that has a good Captain America movie. Oh, hey, fun fact. South Korea, where I live, is one of the only two countries in the world where that movie wasn't called Captain America: The First Avenger. It was simply called The First Avenger because of political and marketing stuff. The other country where the title of the movie was changed was Russia. Make of that what you will, boys and girls. Although, just as a point of curiosity, I actually have my Korean Captain America poster right on the wall over there. You know what? What the heck? I'll show you. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah, right there with my Korean Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 poster. Stupid wires. Okay. I'll fix that all later. Okay, there we go. Hopefully you can see that reasonably clearly. But anyway, at the very end of it all, we do get a very awesome face-off between Captain America and Doctor Doom. And I like how Spidey was trying to really play Doctor Doom's game of, trying to outsmart him, and it didn't really quite work. But it was still, a whole, oh yeah, well, you don't want people to know that Doctor Doom got taken down by a shieldless Captain America and a teenage kid. Well, way to go, Spider-Man. You confirmed to Doctor Doom that you're a teenager. I mean, not that he probably couldn't have figured that out from your previous encounter, but, why hand the most evil guy in the world absolute confirmation of a fact regarding your secret identity? And I did like that Doom actually got arrested. Dr. Doom almost never, ever actually gets taken into custody by the superheroes. I think it's happened like once in the comics. Although in that case it was particularly hilarious since he actually got thrown in the Raft, which is one of the big super villain prisons. I mean, there was even a remark by one of the guards when he was like looking at the list of all the guys they had here. It was like, Victor Von Doom, for real? That was a pretty hilarious moment. I'm not sure exactly why it is that the Amazing Friends wouldn't believe that Peter and Cap took down Doctor Doom like that, and that Doom was deported. Well, gee guys, it's not like something like that wouldn't have, made Yahoo, and, you could certainly just, check your phones if you don't believe him. I mean, it's not really that hard to confirm whether or not Spidey's telling the truth. You could probably just ask Agent Coulson or Nick Fury if it's true. But that would mean the Amazing Friends taking the opportunity to not be a dick to Spider-Man for no reason. And as we have observed many times over the course of this show, the Amazing Friends very rarely pass on the opportunity to be dicks to Peter for no reason. Really makes you wonder what's going to happen in that season finale, don't you? Well, anyway, folks, I think I have said everything that I have to say about this episode. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. And until next time, take care and have a good one.